In this video we're going to step through the installation of the Ellipse Analytical System. This will include ensuring that the database exists and the SSIS system is configured. Then we will configure and run the installation. The Ellipse Analytical System will be contained in a single zip file named like this. The version number may differ. This will need to be extracted into another directory. When this is done, these are the files contained in it. The Reports folder contains all the reports. These are grouped into the bundles. In each of the bundles you will have two files for each report. One being a document that explains how the report works, and another being the Power BI desktop file that contains the report. In the Star Schema doc folder, we have our Star Schema documentation. This includes detailed information about each of our stars. When you click on the Relationship tab, you will see a relationship diagram of that star. You can then drill down to the actual table to see the field descriptions and other tables it relates to. These files are required for the CIO trial. These documents are more information about the installation. Most information is contained in the main Ellipse Analytical Installation document. The sizing document is an Excel spreadsheet that can be used to estimate the size of the system that is required to host this software. This is the main setup. This is what will install the Ellipse Analytical System. To start the Ellipse Analytical setup, just double-click on the Datamart Setup application. The first screen that you'll see is the screen for the application directory. This directory will not contain any data from the Ellipse system. It will contain all files required to install and configure the SAS and SIS resources. Also, items like log files and other resources will be contained in this directory. Another video will explain this folder in more detail. On this window are the details required for the SQL information. This will include information for both the SAS and SIS services. The DB name is the name of the database to contain the star schemas. The SIS server name is the machine name for the SIS server. The SAS server name is the machine name for the SAS server. Both of these could either be localhost, IP-based, or the machine name. The SSIS catalog folder name is the name of the folder that will be created in the SIS system. The environment name is the name of the environment that will contain all of the environmental settings used by the system. This directory is the directory for the DTS folder for SQL Server. In most cases, this will not need to be changed. If it is not found, you will need to enter in the correct folder for this location. This information up here will show the version that is being installed and the current installed version if one exists. Under most situations, these fields should not need to be changed. The only change that might be required is if the SQL Server has been installed with an instance name. Then these settings will need to be changed appropriately. This window will contain information required about the Ellipse system that we are extracting data from. The first thing we need to do is select the correct version of Ellipse. Next, we need to select the date from which the MSF 900 load start date will occur. In some cases, you may not want to load all of the MSF 900 table due to the size constraints that this will put on the SQL Server and the memory required to host this data in the SAS tabular model. If this needs to be changed, the format is this. The first 4 characters is the year, the next 2 characters is the month, and the final 2 characters are the day. We support also 2 types of database connections, either Oracle or SQL Server. If Oracle is selected, we need a TNS name set up with the Oracle client. And the Oracle client will need to be installed prior to this installation. If SQL Server is selected, then no other installation steps would need to occur. The last option is whether we are going to enable the Delta loads. This option is only available if your Ellipse version is 8.8 or greater. The Delta loads will drastically reduce the amount of time it takes to extract data from the Ellipse system after the first load. During this video, you're going to see 2 windows for the connection details to the Ellipse database. Normally you would see 1. There is a different window for Oracle and SQL Server. Note that when you do this, you will only see one of them depending on which one of these options you select. On this page, you will need to enter this information if either the Delta loads are being used or the CIO trial is going to be installed. These Ellipse details are used to connect to the EWS services. The Delta load feature will use this information to update and maintain the audit settings on the tables that we import. This needs to be done so we can track the deleted records. Without this information, the Delta load system will not work. The CIO system uses this information to apply updates to the Ellipse system. This feature is not enabled in the CIO trial, but setting these parameters at this point will make it easier to enable the full version of CIO if this is required in the future. I will now go through these individually. The Ellipse EWS server details will need a full web address for the EWS server. The Ellipse username will need to be entered. The Ellipse password will need to be entered. The district will need to be entered. This will be the district that this user logs into. The position will need to be entered. The user specified in these settings will require the following access in Ellipse. For Ellipse, this would be to be able to update and maintain the audit tables in Ellipse. For CIO, it would be that this user could use the catalog service, have access to MSO 100, MSO 170 and MSO 180, and the ability to schedule batch jobs. This window will only be displayed if the Ellipse database is an MS SQL database. There are 2 types of connections that can be used, either using integrated security. If this is used, neither the username or password would need to be entered, and the user connecting to the database would be the user the SSIS server is running with. If you would wish to use a named user, just uncheck the Use Integrated Security setting and enter the username and password. In this example, I will use Integrated Security. You will then need to enter the name of the machine. This could either be an IP address, localhost, or the machine name. You would need to enter the database name. The schema prefix field will only need to be entered if you need to run the queries that extract data like this. If this is the case, then you will need to put ellipse dot in this field. Otherwise, this field can just be left empty. This window will only be displayed if the Ellipse database is an Oracle-based server. Then, in these fields, these items will need to be entered. The Ellipse TNS name, the Ellipse DB user, the Ellipse DB password for this user, and if required, the schema prefix. This again is the same in the previous window. In this window, you will need to select the Ellipse bundles that you are going to install. In this window, there are several options that can be selected. At this point, all option should be enabled on the first install. What this does is control what parts of the system are updated during the installation. And under most situations, none of these items should be changed. The first item will say whether the SSIS resources are going to be deployed. The second item is saying whether the SSAS models are going to be deployed. And the final option is whether the SSAS models will be processed during the normal run. The only real reason that you would change this is if you were not going to use the SSAS models. In this situation, you would deactivate these two items. This window is the final window before the installation will begin. Once you press the install button, the install will start. If the CO module was selected, then this screen will be displayed saying that the system needs to be restarted. At this point, this can be ignored, but at some point the machine will need to be restarted. Again, you can just select no at this point, but the machine will still need to be restarted to complete the installation correctly. This completes the installation that has installed all the resources, but there is still additional configuration yet to be done. Now that the installation has been completed, the next steps would be some basic testing to ensure the installation has worked, additional configuration, and to perform the first load of the system. Thank you.